All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, there is perhaps no more cringe event in this world than the World Economic Forum, which was held annually at Davos, Switzerland. It has inspired some great memes online with their outlandish costumes. Often its agenda is mocked. Now, my personal favorite being is world billionaires dressing up as refugees to try and get a day in the life feel for it. And then often their panels give us plenty to ridicule too. At its heart, though, the World Economic Forum is a deeply sinister effort. There was a time, not that long ago, that at least the world's billionaire elite tried to hide their machinations behind closed doors. They were really weird clubs, there were clandestine meetings, behind-the-scenes calls with world leaders, but it was only in the mid-2000s and the 1990s, with the codification of neoliberal policy in the White House and across Europe, that they felt comfortable enough to come out in the open and not only push policy globally, but also be naked in their intentions. That's all that I could really think about when I saw one of the most stunning clips yet to emerge from Davos. Let's take a listen.
At Davos a few years ago, the Edelman survey showed us that the good news is the elite across the world trust each other more and more. So we can come together and design and do beautiful things together. The bad news is that in every single country they were polling, the majority of people trusted that elite less. So we can lead, but...
Wow. Let that sink in. The good news is they trust each other more. The bad news is that all of us trust them less. It is really stunning to hear it verbalized that way, given that I would reverse the good and the bad news. But it's useful nonetheless. Globalization has brought a ruling global elite who are much more comfortable with each other than with their own countrymen. And this begets a global effort to make the system continue to work for them and work less for all of us. All of this occurred at this year's World Economic Conference, under the auspices of Klaus Schwab. Now, the leader who famously last year released The Great Reset and is now out with the sequel, The Great Narrative. Now, you might ask, what is the Great Narrative? Well, like The Great Reset, it is nebulous, but as they define it, it reads, quote, a collaborative effort of the world's leading thinkers to fashion longer-term perspectives, co-create a narrative that can help guide the creation of a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable vision for our collective future. A whole lot of nothing, but enough there to parse. Collective future. Co-create a narrative. In other words, a top-down effort by the Davos set to specifically set the agenda and the outlook for the world as they did with the outbreak of globalization in the 1990s. At its heart, the Davos Project, the Great Reset, and the Great Narrative are anti-democratic efforts to push back against nationalist and populist outbreaks across Europe, Asia, here in the United States, and in South America. It is an effort to regain the control over policy and democratic consensus that they had in the 1990s and the mid-2000s. And here's the thing, we absolutely cannot let that happen, because while that clip went viral, there were other moments of the conference that did not get as much attention. Take this one, for example.
I just would like to highlight what you said about the European Chips Act, because it's an important step to create the physical brain for digitalization and to have it located to a certain extent in Europe.
What? Digitalization of the physical brain and have it based in Europe? When most people talk about the need for more semiconductors, like me, it's so you can buy more cars, have more control over your future. And in fact, if you read the press release for the Davos European Chips Act, that's mostly what they say. But when Klaus Schwab says it, he says we need it for the digitization of the physical brain. As I have said in a previous monologue, billionaires and their set are great at one specific thing. That's how they became billionaires. But for some reason, many of them think that mastery of that qualifies them to speak on everything. It's part of that reason that so many of them are eccentric and believe in some really weird stuff. I guess that's fine for them. Good for them for getting rich, but at least here we still have some democratic control. And the problem is that our elite set, as most typified by Davos, are so completely divorced from the wants and the needs of the common people that they are reporting to in these conferences. So to come up with the agenda and then try to force down upon us, even though we have rejected all of them, we have now rejected globalization now in some form in separate elections from here in the US to Britain to India. But let us not forget who remains the greatest winner of so-called globalization, and that's China. Now, for those of you who have missed it here, how lovingly and endearingly Klaus Schwab speaks of Chinese President Xi Jinping when he opened the Davos conference. Literally, take a listen.
China has made significant economic and social achievements under your leadership. In the first 3 quarters of 2021, China's economy grew by over 9%. You have achieved a historic goal to become a moderately prosperous society in all respects. Mr. President, I strongly echo your remarks in 2017 that mankind has made progress by surmounting difficulties, and when encountering difficulties, we should join hands and rise to the challenge. I believe this is the best time for leaders to come together and work jointly for the world to become more inclusive, more sustainable, and more prosperous.
In a lot of ways, Klaus Schwab was right. COVID-19 kind of was the Great Reset. It put things into perspective for millions of people. Some people decided that they simply hate their jobs and they're not going back. Many others quitting, taking new ones for higher wages. Many people said, screw it, I'm staying home, spending more time with my kid. A lot of us, myself included, you took stock of what really matters and you try to reclaim your own destiny. The key part, though, is that it isn't the reset Mr. Schwab wanted at all. It is counter to the so-called great narrative that is critical to him and his set remaining in power. And it reveals to us that the structures that they have put into place on the world economic system need to be ripped down and actually reset. When the elites feel so comfortable saying the quiet part out loud, it is time to get some new elites, and hopefully we are on our way there. I mean, can you believe that clip where she's like, well, the good news is we try.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.